I'm not even going to bore you with some bullshit intro here, other than a modest, hello, my name is Brian, aka Megatella Slayerthrax, and welcome to my review of Pixels. Motherfucker! Where do I even fucking begin with this? Actually, I think the best place to start would be with a bit of backstory on my history with the beloved, I say that in massive air quotes by the way, Adam Sandler. You see, the first ever Adam Sandler film I'd ever seen was actually Click, a quirky, lighthearted sci-fi comedic drama from 2006 starring Sandler, Kate Beckinsale, and Christopher Walken of all people, about a man who discovers a universal remote that allows him to control time, thus allowing him to skip forward through all of the boring parts of his life. He soon discovers that by skipping through these chunks of life that he's missing out on vital moments in his family's lives, and thus decides in the end to just live his life normally. The film itself isn't all that interesting, and in all actuality is littered with most, if not all, of the same problems most, again, if not all, Adam Sandler films suffer from, but we'll get more into that in a bit once we actually jump into Pixels. When I was younger, however, I enjoyed Click quite a bit actually, and so I had gone back and seen some of Sandler's earlier, arguably better, films, and stuck with his future endeavors as well. However, as I got older, and a lot wiser, I began to see through the facade that was pretty much all of Sandler's films. I began to develop actual taste, and I noticed just how batshit insanely terrible just about every single one of his films were. And so while I'd still give the films a chance, mainly for shits and giggles, I basically went into every single film with incredibly low expectations, and yet every single time, I'm still managed to be surprised by just how terrible any given film can be. It wasn't until around maybe 2 years ago that I finally just said fuck it and gave up watching any Sandler films after the release of Grown Ups 2. And I've pretty much stuck with that. I never saw Blended, I refused to sit through Paul Blart 2, I haven't seen The Cobbler, a film I bet most of you didn't even know existed by the way, but yet, despite all of that, something still drew me into Pixels. It was mostly the concept. You see, I'd originally started seeing posters for Pixels at local movie theaters back in January, and all of these promotional images featured the various video game characters featured in the movie doing whatever the fuck, and nothing else. I had no idea what the film would be about, who would be starring in it, nothing. Up until the release of the very first trailer. And that's when I knew all expectations of even a decent film were to be thrown out of the window of a 3-story building, only to then be run over repeatedly by an 18-wheeler. I am not joking when I say this. The very second I saw Adam Sandler's face in the trailer, I turned it off, closed the tab I had been watching it on, and stepped outside for a breather. Upon returning, I had seen countless amounts of my friends, in massive air quotes, posting online about how interesting the trailer looked, and I immediately just lost all hope in any and everyone who had said anything positive about the trailer. I had my doubts about the film, and I was very vocal in expressing how I felt about it. No one wanted to listen to me, and most people told me that I was being far too negative and that I'd have to just wait and give the film a proper chance upon release. And so I stepped back and let my thoughts rest on the back burner in my mind. I knew my time would come when the film was released, so I let it go. And you know what? The time has come. As of Wednesday, July 22nd, that's when I had discovered for certain that I'd been right the entire time. Reviews for the film had begun being released a few days before the film's July 24th release, and critics panned the shit out of this movie. In fact, it currently holds an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes at the time of this recording, and at one point, the score had been even lower than that. I finally had my justification that I had longed for so long, but it wasn't enough. After discovering just how bad of a reception Pixels had gotten, I only found my interest in actually watching this shitfest peaking even more. I wanted to know just how terrible it was, and I wanted to be able to give a proper stance on my thoughts of the film overall. And well, to actually do that requires I sit through the fucking thing, and I unfortunately did. With all that said, let's begin with the plot. The story begins with a bit of backstory on Sam Brenner, Sandler's character, who at one point in his childhood was a master of classic arcade games such as Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Galaga, etc. We're given a brief montage that establishes who he and his friend Will Cooper, played by Kevin James, are, what they do, and so on and so forth. They then discover that a time capsule containing certain cultural elements from that time period will be launched into space for whatever reason. At that point, we're then introduced to Ludlow Lamonsop, I don't even fucking know how to pronounce this guy's name, played by Josh Gad, who's established as this incredibly smart but socially awkward nerd who's deeply in love with this female protagonist from the made-up video game Dojo Quest. The other two decide to befriend him, and Brenner then finds himself entering an arcade game world championships, where he excels at every game up until the very end, where he's forced to face off against one Eddie Plant, played by Peter Dinklage, in a game of Donkey Kong. Brenner ultimately loses after Plant throws him off his game, and that's basically it. We then jump 30-something odd years into the future, where Brenner is now an employee of what I can only assume is this film's version of the Geek Squad, and Cooper is now the fucking President of the United States. Yes, you heard that correctly. Kevin James plays the President of the United States in this movie. What the actual fuck? Regardless, it's at this point where the film essentially breaks down into its main plot. It's soon discovered that aliens have begun attacking the planet and intend to take it over. Why are they doing this, you may ask? Well, the time capsule that was launched into space all those years ago was discovered and examined by a group of aliens who, somehow, interpreted the contents of the time capsule as some form of declaration of war. And so the aliens came to Earth in the form of all of these various video game characters from circa 1982 and are trying to take it over. Cooper assembles his group of childhood friends once he discovers that the aliens are using the forms of these characters and sends them off to defeat the aliens in ways similar to that of their gaming origins. It's from this point onward that the film follows a pretty basic structure. They defeat a swarm of aliens from a specific game, we're then given useless exposition on the 3 or 4 side plots this film shoves in your face. They then go through another game, this time defeating Pac-Man, more useless exposition, and then go through the final game, thus ridding the world of all the aliens who had become threats and essentially saving the day. La-di fucking da, no one cares. Holy shit, this story is a mess. And not so much for the overall plot either. The basic story itself is simple and easy enough to follow. It isn't convoluted in any way, and for that I can somewhat commend it. But it's the content within this story that just makes the film overall so damn tedious to sit through. The massive amounts of side plots don't help this film either. There's one major side plot involving Sandler's character developing a romantic bond with this generic ass love interest played by Michelle Monaghan. Then there's another side plot featuring Gad's character finding love with the protagonist of that Dojo Quest game I mentioned earlier after she's brought to life by the aliens taking her form, only for her to be killed in the end after the last game is conquered, only then for her to literally be reincarnated by fucking Qbert of all characters. Then there's the side plot with Dinklage's character where he essentially struggles to hit it off on a date with Serena Williams, fucking really, with whom he manages to get a date with after bargaining for both it and his release from prison with James's character in exchange for his services in the fight against the aliens. And then there's the side plot with James's character where he struggles with the general public seeing him as a failing president, no fucking shock there, and his attempt at redeeming himself by saving the world with his gaming comrades. In terms of the overall content this film provides, well, remember how I mentioned most, if not all, of Sandler's films suffer from similar types of problems? Well, I think it's time we get into exactly what I mean. I briefly discussed this in a much shorter written review I did over on my personal Facebook page, but I'll go ahead and recap my thoughts here. This film is littered with stupid, immature jokes that fall so unbelievably flat and useless 80s pop culture references that are still surprisingly less outdated than Sandler's brand of humor, if you can even call it humor. This film makes me hate the things I love. It makes me hate the music I like that gets used in the film. It makes me hate the video games I like that are used in this film. And it makes me hate the actors I actually like, surprised there are any, that are in this film. Seriously, Josh Gad, why did you have to be in this piece of shit? I actually like Olaf, but now you make me want to hate him. And you. The absolute worst part about all of this is that I actually don't want to hate this film. Conceptually, it's got a decent story, but the execution, again, falls so fucking unbelievably flat, it makes me nauseous. The most enjoyable thing about the film are its visuals. Honestly, there are certain bits that actually make the film look tolerable to sit through, given just how vibrant the color choices are with all of the game characters that are represented. But these moments are so few and far in between that they might as well not even be here in the first place. The film couldn't even manage to make me smirk. Not even once. I swear to Christ that I did not so much as even smile during the entirety of this film. At least, not due to anything that was happening on screen, that is. Any and every moment where I should have smiled, specifically due to certain cameos like the Duck Hunt dog, instead I just sat there asking myself, why the fuck are you in this? At least Grown Ups 2, as much as I fucking hate that film, made me laugh once throughout its runtime. And it was only because the scene itself in which I laughed featured a wrestler I just so happened to really like beating the shit out of everybody. Seriously, it's the best part of that movie. But I'd still put it below Pixels, for even more reasons I'd have to get into some other time because this review is long enough as it is. All in all, Pixels fails as not only a comedy, but as a supposed homage to classic gaming. Pixels absolutely shits on all of these classic games, and I fucking hate it all the more for it. Fuck Pixels, fuck Adam Sandler, fuck Happy Madison Productions, the end.